Now I look more arreglada. Hey you guys, and welcome back to my YouTube channel. Oh, there's a piece of my hair sticking out. Okay, so 2022 has come to an end, and I thought that the best way to end 2022, even though it's not the end just yet, we still got like a couple more weeks or so, is to make a video of all the books that I've read in 2022. And since I started the year late reading books, I only made it my goal to read 20 books this year because I just started reading like in the middle of summer and just thought there's no way, knowing me and since I'm just barely starting out, that I can knock out like 100 books. I was like, no. I was like, I kind of want to start small and then maybe next year make... There's someone at my house and I'm freaking out. Anyways, my goal for reading this year was reading 20 books, and I am proud to say that I have accomplished reading 20 books. First off, I want to start off with like some of the books that I don't have with me, and honestly they're probably like the lowest rated books that I read, which is very weird. Now the first one comes no surprise to you guys because I just made a video on this, but it is Ugly Love by Colleen Hoover. Worst book I read this year. I honestly, like, I knew that I was not gonna like Colleen Hoover, but I can acknowledge she's not Shakespeare or anything, but like, you know, it's still like a decent read. No, it was horrible. I already made a review and like my entire thought about Ugly Love in another video, but just a quick recap. Tate was a doormat and she just let a boy use and abuse her, and then Miles is just a cunt. Yes, you heard me.
He's a two-faced cunt. Why am I not a cunt? You're the cunt! You're the fucking cunt, bitch!
He's just an overall a-hole because he only used Tate just to get over a long-forgotten ex-girlfriend. And he has like trauma that he hasn't healed from, and he expected Tate to fix that for him. Yeah, no, we're not promoting such disgusting, grotesque ideas. So yeah, I rated that book a 2 stars. Now the next book that I felt like I rated pretty low is Red Queen. I used to have the entire Red Queen book set in hardcovers. I bought this book set during the pandemic, and this was my first attempt to reading again, but then I stopped. So I read the first Red Queen book over the pandemic, and you know, then I was like, okay, this is a good read. Like I kind of enjoy it, you know. And then I read the second book and I absolutely did not know what the fuck was going on, and I absolutely hated it. I couldn't even like really bother to continue with it, so I kind of just stopped. And fast forward to last summer, I saw that, you know, I still had the whole like set on my bookshelf, and I was like, well, you know what, let me just give it another go. I read the first book again, and I could not vibe with it the way I did the first time. I don't know, just it seemed to me like as I was reading the book, the characters were just very annoying, especially the main character, who is constantly complaining about making decisions that other people were doing for her. She kind of talked so highly about herself, but she did nothing throughout the entire book, and that was fucking annoying because it was mostly either Cal, Maven, or even Julian doing the shit for her.
And here we go. I hope you're hungry for nothing. Now.
And that was annoying because, girl, don't say you are like leading this revolution when you're really not. It's everybody else that's leading the revolution. And she just comes off as very weak to me and very complaining and asks so many damn questions. Like, girl, shut the book would have been more enjoyable with another character. I literally would read this book if it was based on Maven's perspective. Maven and Julian to me were my only favorite characters. I liked that Maven turned to a bad guy in the end. Did I suspected that? Yes, I did. Like, it was kind of predictable, but I still loved it. I would have preferred this whole entire book to be told in Maven's perspective. I loved him as a character. Mayor Barrow? And what kind of name is the Mayor Barrow? It sucks because I was really interested in reading this series because I thought it was everything that I wanted in a book. It has like royalty. It has like these extravagant balls and shit and like the gowns, and then on top of that the fighting. Like, it had everything, and then the magic powers. It had everything that I wanted in the book. I felt like it could use a better main character with better motives and just overall better personality. So I rated this book a 3 stars, just a plain 3 stars. It was mid. It was mid to me. I wouldn't rate it any lower than that because, like, I did enjoy it at some point. That's why it's a 3 stars for me. So the next book that I rated pretty low is the Bridgerton series. I mean, not the entire series, but the first book in particular, and that is The Duke and I. I would say that I enjoyed the first half of the book, and then the second half I absolutely did not care about. And that was like when Daphne and what was his face? I forgot. Oh, Daphne and Simon got married. After that point, I really did not care. I loved the whole fake dating trope that was used, not only in the show, but in the book as well. Like, I enjoyed their little banter and like, their like small hatred, but like still yearning for each other. Like, I liked that. That kept me very interested, But then, like, once they got married, and it was like, more so they got married for convenience because he did ruin her with, oh yeah, spoilers. I mean, but I feel like everybody's seen Bridgerton, at least the show. As Simon did ruin Daphne, like, he kind of had to get married to her. And just from that point on, like, the book was just not the same as it was in the beginning. And also, and this happened in the show too, which I did not like, and I feel like a lot of people can agree with me. Daphne say to Simon while he was drunk, why are we promoting these problematic things in books? Like, I don't understand what's the appeal to that. That was not sexy to me. That was not attractive. That was just plain disgusting. Daphne's reason for this is just so stupid too, because she was like, well, you withheld information from me. It was just miscommunication. That was honestly just it. It's not that he was purposely doing that to you. I felt like Daphne should have kind of picked up the context clues. Like, I felt like everyone else got the hint but her, because Simon throughout this entire book, it's made known that he does not like his father, and there's nothing but like to end the line with him. So it should have been very apparent to Daphne that the reason why he like can't have kids is because he doesn't want them. I got it earlier on in the book, so I don't understand why she didn't get it. But anyways, that was like one of the reasons why I rated it very, very low. These two books have like the same ratings, but I wouldn't consider them like low ratings, like super low, but they're just like, this is the rating where the books become like good, but not anything exceptional, but just good to read. The first one I'm going to be talking about is Mr. Malcolm's List. I don't really have much to say about this book other than it was like a good read. Like, it was good. It did its job. She did what she needed to do. What I did not like was Selena's friend, and I forgot her name. Was it Penelope, or I just remember her name was a P. I don't really have much to say because I felt like the storyline didn't really involve too much conflict, if that makes sense. The only thing that really involved conflict was when Selena's friend butt in, kind of trying to like embarrass Mr. Malcolm or whatever the F. Didn't invoke any strong feelings in me, if that makes sense. And like throughout the entire story, Selena was pretty level-headed. It was just like there, So, I mean, it wasn't a bad book. Like, it was very enjoyable for me to read, but I don't think I would read it again. So, for me, the rating is like a 3.5 stars. Now, the next book that I'll be talking about is The People We Meet on Vacation by Emily Henry. I did really enjoy this book. Like, it was such a fun read. I gave it like the same rating, but I would honestly read it again. I enjoyed like the dual, like, is it dual perspectives? I don't know. Talk about like the present events, and then on certain chapters it would go back into the past where we would see like their friendship building up. They made like their friends to dating, or were their friends and now they're boyfriend and girlfriend basically, and it made their relationship very believable. For sure I will be reading Emily Henry's other books because I really did enjoy The People We Meet on Vacation, and I liked how whenever like they stopped at like, you know, real life locations, I would constantly like grab my phone and look up these places so I can kind of envision where they're at, and it was just so fun and it was so cute. Anyways, those are all the books that I don't have on hand with me. Actually, that's a lie. There was another one, and that is Shatter Me by Tahiri Mafi. I think that's how you say her name. I still have not read the second book, but I'm like trying to get through my physical TBR out of the way. But yeah, I enjoyed her for what she was. I have a review of this posted on my other video. I do have to say that I did feel like nothing really happened kind of like throughout most of the book, if I'm being honest. It wasn't until like they made their escape was when things started to pick up. But overall, it was an enjoyable read. I would have ate this shit up if I was in middle school or if I was in high school, and I've said that before. But I am wanting to read the rest of her series, and we'll see how this goes. Oh, and I rated this book a 3.5 stars, I think, as well. Yeah. So these are all the books that are kind of still in like, I guess the mid ratings or whatever. Is Tender is the Flesh by Agustina Bastiquera, I think that's how you say her name. And this is like a horror-esque, this is like probably my first horror read of the year. And I read this during October for the spooky season, and I honestly got it just for the cover. Cause look, the cover is so cool. I did read, like before going into this book, I did read what the synopsis of this book was, and it was basically in like, I guess, a dystopian world, or like in a different type of like universe, I don't know how you would say, in like a different type of society where everyone, instead of consuming like beef and like animal meats per se, we started to consume humans instead. And they wouldn't just eat just any humans, they had to be like of a certain like breed, I guess you would say. It's kind of hard to explain. Basically follows like the main character, and he works in one of those factories where they slaughter humans, and it just basically like goes through like what he feels and what he thinks about all of this, and he's given his own female you know what I'm talking about. Anyways, he's given that to him from like a co-worker, and they were planning on killing her and like making like a barbecue, like a cookout essentially. He just like doesn't have it in him to kill her, so instead he kind of just like takes care of her or whatever. But the story gets very twisted and like dark. I was feeling very uncomfortable reading this book. Like, just certain parts of it just made me feel very icky and very like, and the ending, you guys, kind of caught me off guard. Like, not that I didn't see it coming, but like just still like as sympathetic as he makes himself out to be in the book. And that's all I'm gonna say, because I do not, if for those of you that want to read this book, I do not want to spoil it completely for you guys. But yeah, that's what I have to say about Tender is the Flesh, and I rated this like a 3.5 stars, I think, as well. This is Japanese translated work, and it is Strange Weather in Tokyo by Hiromi Kawakami. I was kind of confused reading this book when I first came across it, because I thought it was just like gonna tell like an overall grand story, but then I quickly figured out that each chapter is like its own little episode of like the main character and this older guy that was her teacher in high school. But she like comes across, like she meets him again when she's in her 30s, and I think he's in his 60s, which is still kind of questionable, but given, you know, Japanese media, sometimes I'm not entirely surprised that like they need a story out of a student and a teacher. But you know, we're saving that can of beans for like some other time. It tells the relationship of the main character and her old professor and the time that they would spend time with each other, and it talks about themes of loneliness and like solitude and love and finding love in like the strangest and most unexpected ways. I feel like a second go around for this read is what I need. I didn't like hate it, but I didn't entirely love it either, but I still did like the book. So for now, it's just a 3.5 stars. Next book is something that I just finished very recently, and I'm reading the second book. That is A Court of Thorns and Roses by Sarah J. Maas. This is a beloved book on Book Talk, BookTube. Everybody raves about not only this book, but this book series. And the first time I read it, I absolutely hated this book because I just felt like it was so pointless and so stupid. And at times, it is. Y'all are gonna hate me for saying this, but I decided to give it another go around read. I had the original covers, like I had the original covers and I sold them. Do I regret it? A little bit, but I kind of like these new covers more. They're more like pretty in my opinion. At least like this shade of red is so pretty. Anyways, getting sidetracked. Let's just say that I had such an entertaining read. Like this wasn't like literary works of like art or anything, but it was just an entertaining read. And I did feel like this book kind of dragged on a little bit, but then not at all. Like I felt like the trials, or felt like that was kind of a last minute afterthought a little bit. Like it wasn't really well thought out, and I felt like the trials or whatever she was going through could have been better. The challenge that I liked was the last one, and that was I had to make this decision to kill those fairies. I gave this book like a 3.5 as well. I'm giving a lot of these a 3.5. I swear you guys, I have better rated books. I swear. I'm gonna talk about books that I did give a higher rating. So let me get those right now. This is the book that finished my 20 book challenge, and that is Bunny by Mona Awad. And I picked this up from the library because like I heard such mixed reviews on it online, and I wasn't entirely sure if I was gonna love it because it's either you hate or love this book. Like there is no in between. And when I started reading, I was so confused. There was just so many strange things happening that I couldn't believe, like, is this really happening? Is this really real? So I literally felt like I was on drugs reading this book. But as I got to read more and more, I like started to like, you know, make sense of the book. And then by the end of it, it was just like, oh my God. So I definitely want to give this another read just to like read back on the things that I might have missed, because I feel like sometimes when you read the book a first time, you like miss a lot of things, and I feel like I certainly did. It's a 4.75 stars. For me, this book I have is Tales from the Cafe, and this is a sequel to Before the Coffee Gets Cold. I rated this lower than the first book because the first book had a much bigger impact on me, but this one was still such a beautiful read. And it basically goes through the same thing that the first book did, just with different people, and that's basically people coming into this cafe, either going back to the past or taking the risk and going into the future to meet people that they have regrets with, like not necessarily like they regret meeting with, but like they have regrets that they did in their life and kind of want some sort of closure out of that. This one was like a 4.5 stars, I believe. It was a beautiful book. The next one I have is A Little Life by Hanya Yanagihara. Oh my God, you guys. This is not a 5-star, and I'm gonna tell you why. But this book is probably my favorite book that I've read in this challenge for 2022. This book I consistently think about every single day. There's not one moment where I'm not thinking about a moment or an event or a situation that happened in this book. And it also makes me reflect on my own life and like the things that I deal with. For those of you that don't know, this book deals with very, very heavy topics. These are trigger warnings. I don't even want to say all of them. I'm just gonna like post them like all up here. But this book is honestly not for the faint of heart. I knew that going into it. Like I had to take breaks reading this book because the content within it was just so heavy. My favorite things about this book things that he did with his friends. It was honestly like probably some of the most wholesome and like very like moving things to read for me. It had me reflecting a lot on myself and like, because I have my own hurdles of like with mental health and with depression, and it's something that I've been dealing with for such a long time. This book kind of helped me understand myself a little bit more, if that makes sense. I rated this, I believe, like a 4.5, just because I felt like some of the stuff that contained in this book was just too much, and I felt like she didn't need to add the excess amount of trauma that was in this book. Like, I just felt like sometimes it was a little overboard. But that is why it's not a 5-star. The next book is much more lighter, much more like, and I read this book while I was reading this one, so it gave me like some fresh air. And that is The Housekeeper and the Professor by Yoko Agawa. And this is another translated literary fic. And it is about this woman that takes care, or it's like a housekeeper of this professor, like literally says it in the title. And he is like a mathematics professor, and he has, I think, has a condition where he can only remember things for like 80 minutes. And then like all of that, like he kind of learns how to not necessarily deal with him, but know how to handle like whenever it comes to like problems that he might encounter or whatever, because like his memory is very limited. And it talks about life in mathematical equations or in like mathematical situations, like if that makes sense. But it's very beautifully written, and it's like so easy to read, and it made math a little bit easy for me to understand. And I just love the relationship between the housekeeper and the professor, and then the son, whose nickname is Root because his head reminded him of the square root. Like, that's so cute. I gave it a 4.75. So the last books in the high rated categories, actually no, we have one more. It is Horrorstör by Grady Hendrix. This is such a fun read, like for October. It reads like an IKEA catalog. It basically takes place in this like bootleg IKEA where the main character has to take the night shift because something is going, but like there's bizarre things happening at night inside this bootleg IKEA store. I so badly want a second book because I felt like it kind of ended like not on a cliffhanger per se, but like that there's a continuation to like there should be another book, you know? And we're probably not getting another one. It's kind of a spoiler. I want to know if they find their friends that got lost in the store. I rated this 4.5, I think. I'm debating like on changing the rating for it because of like the recent outrage going on Book Talk right now, and that is Babel by R.F. Kuang, or the longer name, Babel or the Necessity of Violence, an Arcane History of the Oxford Translated Revolution. This book, you guys, was such like mind-opening to read. So for those of you that don't know, this book talks about colonialism and like exploitation of countries a lot. Like that is the main theme going on in this book. And the main character is a boy that's from China and gets literally, I don't care what you say, he literally does get kidnapped by an English professor. And the English professor basically takes him under his wing for one day when he gets older to start studying at Oxford and start doing translation or silver work. Silver work, for those of you guys that don't know, is like this kind of magic system in Babel where they would find matching pairs of words and basically inscribe that on silver, and that would manifest that thing to happen, if that makes sense. I don't know if I'm explaining it well because I was kind of confused too when I read it, but then I quickly got it. And it basically tells like Robin going through Oxford and meeting people that are like him, that are also POCs, because if you don't know, everyone basically at Oxford is a white straight man, mostly everybody, with the exception of a few people. And he meets like his own friend group, and that is Remy, and he is from Calcutta, I believe. Victoire, and she is a French Creole girl, French Creole black girl. And then we have Letty, and she is a white girl. but y'all are gonna hit Letty. So yeah, this book basically talks about how the people at Oxford use other people's languages to fuel their own empire. I'm not very good at explaining that, but there are plenty of other people on Book Talk and on BookTube that can explain that sense a lot better than me, because when I tried to explain it to people, they were just kind of like confused. I originally rated this like a 4.75 because I just felt like it did drag on a little too much. Otherwise, it would have been a 5 stars. But then the discourse over this book that I've been seeing on Book Talk make me want to rate this book now a 5 stars. Because there was this white girl who was like 0 stars for this book because it made her bad for being white. Like, girl, did the whole plot, did the whole theme of the book, or like the message of the book just completely went over your head? Did Letty's character teach you nothing about the fact that nobody cares about POC problems whatsoever because it does not concern or pertain to them? And she just like she centered this book around her, even though this book was not for her. That just really irked me, because it's not that this book is trying to make white people feel bad for being white. It's just more so that white people in general should be aware that their own people created these institutions and created these systems and government for their own benefit, and to exploit and to use POC lands and their culture and their language for their own benefit. That like just made me so mad. So, you know, I'm gonna change my Goodreads rating to a 5 stars because of that hoe. Everyone should read Babel by R. Kwon. And for those of you saying in books make you feel uncomfortable, if they make you feel uncomfortable, it's probably for a reason. You probably have some sort of internalized hate or some sort of internalized racism or whatever the F you have, and whatever issues you have inside you that this book or whatever other book called you out on it. I feel like literature should be made to critique and to make others really think about things. Miss R.F. Kwon did that very well in this book. So if you're booty hurt or booty tickled over what that other bitch said, like about feeling bad for being white, it's probably because you have some sort of internalized issues that you have not dealt with yet. That's all I'm going to say on that. First book that I rated 5 stars that I'm holding in my hand is The Secret History by Tana Tart. And it is like a critique on dark academia. And I loved this book. It was such a ride to read. It was a little slow at times, but it just, for me, it made the building and the anticipation feel a lot more heavy. The story tells the main character of Richard Pepin going through this, I wouldn't say prestigious university, but it was, I think, like a liberal arts university. And he enters like a Greek class full of like these 5 rich, pompous ass students. And how he desperately so tries to be like them, but we figure out these other 5 students have issues of their own as well. It's mainly a critique on elitism, on classism, on the things that we as a society sometimes think to value like don't really matter, or not that they don't matter, but like, they have their own issues about it as well. I just don't really want to say so much without spoiling, because I feel like I tend to spoil things. So yeah, that's why I rated this a 5 stars. So the next 5 stars is Before the Coffee Gets Cold by Toshikazu Kawaguchi. And we already know the premise of this book. I basically said it on the other book that I rated. This was one of the first books that I started to read when I started my challenge, and this was the book that made me fall in love with reading all over again. And that's why it holds such a dear place in my heart, and that's why I give it such a high rating, because I absolutely love it. Next one is Almond by Won Pyung-son. I think that's how you say it. Forgive me for butchering her name. This tells the story of a boy who can't feel emotions like a regular person does. And there was an event that happened in his life where it made it very apparent to him that he was kind of different from everybody else, and how everyone else perceived him to be kind of like strange and weird, and nobody really wanted to talk to him. It basically tells about his life growing up and like the people that he encounters, specifically one boy in particular that he meets. And it, like, this book literally made me cry. Like, not to say that this is a sad book, but it's just like the message and like the things that happened really impacted me and really like pulled some heartstrings. And it's such a beautiful, I think it's such a beautiful book. Would highly recommend everybody to read this. Also, the cover is just stunning. And this book is a recent read of mine. It's Convenience Store Woman by Sayaka Murata. And let me tell you, like, I loved this book. Like, it was such an easy read. It was so like entertaining, about a woman with autism, and she works a convenience store job, but she is like around her 30s, I believe. And like in Japan, it's just very weird to see like older women in like low paying jobs, or it's no career striving place to be. So they kind of view her as very weird and being kind of odd. And this book basically talks about how society views not only like women with no like future plan, but also single women, because the main character in this book, she has no interest in dating. She has no interest in being with somebody. And it's a critique on society and how society thinks what the norm should be, and like, you know, all things of that nature. I just found this to be very enjoyable. And I like the whole, how dedicated she is to her little convenience store job. It's just so cute. Next book that I rated a 5 stars is The Cruel Prince by Holly Black. This is what I've been waiting for. I have been waiting for a book to give me princess, fantasy, fairies, and this was the book for me. I absolutely loved and devoured and ate this shit up. For those of you that don't know, which this is a popular book on Book Talk and BookTube, so I'm just gonna give a quick rundown. It's basically a girl named Jude who lives in the human world for some time, and then this like big green monster looking dude basically kills her parents and takes her and her sisters to the fairy world, and she grows up as a human in this fairy world. So Jude basically gets taken on as like an undercover spy for one of the princes of the realm, and like has like this disdain for the prince's brother, which his name is Carl. Carden is so hot, and he's kind of like the loser prince out of all the princes, if I'm being honest. And it tells like that story of like her time being undercover and like her disdain for Carden, and there's just so much more, but I encourage you guys to read it without knowing nothing, because that's what I did. The final book is Frankenstein by Mary Shelley. This is my first classic read, because I had to read a classic before the year ended. And I decided Frankenstein because a lot of people said it was a very easy read, and it really was. Like, I blew this book fairly quickly. It basically tells the story of Victor Frankenstein and his search for creating like the ideal perfect being. And he does so, but at what cost? So this book talks a lot about creation, about life and death, and it often references things like from Paradise Lost and other works, and I just absolutely love that. I love the themes that are in this book. It really is like eye-opening and made me reflect a lot, because sometimes we do things at the expense of others, or at our own expense sometimes. We really see like the glamorous side of things, but we don't take into account of the things that could potentially harm us, you know? But yeah, that's why this is like an easy 5 stars. I would be rereading this again. And now I want to read more classic literature. So you guys, that's the end of this video. I feel like I've talked for an hour already. Those are all the books that I read during 2022, and I cannot wait to start 2023. And I'll probably make another video talking about all the books that I'm gonna make a video talking about all the books that I want to read that year. And my new reading goal for next year will be 50 books. I know that's not astronomically like like a lot, but I feel like it's like another good place to start considering how busy I get sometimes and how I just don't have the time just to sit down and read all the time. I hope you guys enjoy this video, and I'll see you guys in the next one. Bye!